cults have always been sold as this idea that there's this charismatic leader. The reality of the fact is that if you stand up and say, this is not right, you're effectively dead.
Did you witness any of that? How do you go from living with your father to Hollywood?
I saw a flyer. He could be an extra in a movie. But then all of a sudden, I'm being sent around the world at film festivals. And I see this kind of big pockmarked shadow behind me, and it was this loser named Harvey Weinstein. Everybody who ever talked about this man, they would like with fear. In hindsight, every detail leading up to that moment, I could see how orchestrated it was to get me into the position that I was in. These two assistants come out, and they wouldn't look at me.
Can I ask, after an assault like that happens, do you feel as if everything is fake?
They calculated that he was thanked more times than God at the Oscars.
God, Harvey Weinstein.
Because he was their God. This was far worse than the cult I grew up in. And then I was 1,000% shut out of that world. My bank account had been wiped out. I didn't know what was happening to me. But what did really help me, my former co-star said, come and do a Comic-Con. I used to wonder for so long, who's on the other side of the screen? And these people, these sweet, loving nerds, held me up.
Harvey Weinstein is currently serving 16 years in prison. Do you believe justice was served? Hey there, before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you for being here and watching the show. It's really one of the greatest honors of my career to have these conversations. Can I ask a small favor? Hit the subscribe button, please. It's just one click, it's completely free, and it helps us grow the community. The more we grow, the bigger the guests we can bring on, and the deeper the conversations we can have. Thank you, truly, it means a lot. Rose McGowan, we need to talk.
Palsy, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So your name came up, and my boys said, oh, Rose McGowan, the activist. And that was interesting because for me, you have always been Rose McGowan, the actress. And what I want to unpack is all of that, from actress to activist, and even before actress. But what's your impression of that, though?
Amazing. I've never, labels have never really fit. Actress never fit very well for me, although technically, yes. Activist, I sometimes felt that would take away from like people that like have been out there in the streets for a lifetime kind of fighting stuff. But it's fitting. I think they can coexist. And then on the other side is just me super happy just to exist as a whole human. My real name is Rosa Ariana. Nice to meet you, Palsy. And there's the duality, and it's, what your kids and you, it's what you said. I mean, it's been a weird ride, man.
Yeah.
Woo.
You know what? and even on that point, you're right, because so through my adult life, my entire adult life, I have known of you, right? And it's interesting because I thought I knew you, but clearly knew nothing about what was actually happening. And so I think this is going to be an opportunity for me to indulge in fully unpacking and understanding you, because also I had no idea that, so you were born in Italy.
Yeah. So I grew up in a thing called Children of God, but in Italian, Bambini di Dios, and in Italy. And when at that time, when Children of God was labeled a cult afterwards, when they went into this, that was not the word for it. There was no word for that, right? And it was just, the end of Vietnam. It was that my father was this wild artist, and his father's pretty high up in the Navy.
Okay.
And my father did everything he could not to go to war.
So
to America. Yeah.
they were here in the UK, and they were part of Children of God at that
The
time.
nascent, thing. Eventually, it grew to like 130 chapters worldwide.
Let's even unpack a cult, because to me, I've often tried to reconcile what actually is a cult. And typically I've seen that. So a cult is normally led by one ultra charismatic person. Secondly is that it is maintained through coercion and manipulation. And then next is that oftentimes the participants are duped, right? Entirely duped. So is that how you would quantify a cult?
You know, I wrote a book called Brave, and I talk about cults in there and how I started actually recognizing them and their patterns in greater society. My definition is yes, all of those things. But what I think the way cults have always been sold to the public as this idea that there's this charismatic leader and then there's all these people sitting there just like the reality of the fact is that that person is on stage or leading for a very short amount of time. The rest of the time, the group is cross hypnosis.
Cross hypnosis.
That's what I see it as. And if you did, as kind of later, maybe we'll get to what I did in Hollywood, stand up and say, this is not right. This is programming. This is against human nature. This is not. We're better than this. I don't agree with this. Instead of having a dialogue about it, you are cast out. You are scorned. You are shunned. You don't exist. You are effectively dead. So there are religious groups still, big ones and smaller ones that do this, but also families.
Yes.
Also, if like, okay, you are trans, that okay, you don't exist to us. That's changing a lot, thank God. But or this, so you can see how the cult dynamic is one in human nature, but two, I think very much in any kind of group where if you, let's say you really love me and I really love you and we're great friends. But that friendship is contingent only on that if we believe in the exact same thing and say the exact same thing and kind of signal to each other that it's a language and it's hypnotic language.
Interesting.
So really the cult leader's there for 10% of the time. The rest of the time is up to the group.
Okay. From what I understand, your father was considered in the earlier days to be a leader within Children of God, right? So would you say that he was he was hypnotized in essence?
I would say my father was very charismatic, check. Very beautiful, check. Wild, unique thinker, check, check, check. But also looked like a rock star and loved the ladies. Check, check, check. And his ideals were really, I don't disagree with them. I mean, he was anti-capitalism, cool. But more interestingly, like we would go out, like one of my earliest memories of him, we would go out in the Tuscan hillsides and we would go hunting
Oh, wow.
for colors.
For colors.
He was to me like it was just his mind was so unique and it informed so much of how I see things, right? And yeah, like we would go out and be like, oh, okay, now you have to find 5 different shades of blue. Now you have to find 7 different shades of red or orange or what is the farthest you can see this light to. That was what we would. So instead of going the perception of hunting as he was raised doing, maybe for with a gun and with an animal, something that dies. It was transmuted into something beautiful and unique.
I see it.
So for me, that's kind of like how
I see it.
yeah, and that was a big part of why he was so special. I think it really devastated him that the whole thing collapsed. And he kind of didn't know how to fit into regular society. But
Yes.
he was, I would say, my greatest love and greatest enemy for a long time.
I,
Absolutely.
I could see that
Yeah.
even in how you're speaking about him. I can even see how your voice changed ever so slightly in speaking about him. Uh, I could see now how he joined or why he would join because it was a place where he felt like he could fit in.
He did this amazing painting after I was conceived. It's Henry VIII
Okay.
in this full regalia, and you could see how he did it. You could almost see like the hairs on the fur that he put and the jewels and gemstones in this beautiful garden. But he also put an orange beanie on his head with a pom-pom and a big stein of lager. Just that was his
That
kind
was,
of
yeah.
perspective. So I can see what my mother was very much attracted to because there was a duke. That was my father's like kind of number two.
Okay.
And it was his grounds and his palazzo that we grew up in. So that this kind of very unique, massive property, so didn't really kind of go outside too much. And I grew up like reading full books, and a lot of the books were from the 1700s, 1800s. So I had completely different names and information for things. And my first language was Italian.
Was Italian,
Yeah.
yes. The performing piece, though, you were performing. Was it you were made to perform? Is that correct? So that you were literally performing because you needed to generate a certain amount of money to bring back to the
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah.
What does he call it? Organization to the what do you call
LLC. No,
it? To the company.
to the
Um,
company. I don't know. I wasn't, I know that we were in Malta at some point, which is, and I know we were deported from there for, I think they were passing out like little pamphlets and things, and I think they just kind of, the Maltese were like, that's a no for us.
wow. So it was you were going out and performing in Italy. So that was the beginning of your
I guess.
performance
Kind
career,
yeah,
technically.
yes.
Oh, so you're but so you were literally, you remember having to, did you feel the pressure of having to make money?
I remember more that I remember noticing what other children were wearing and their clothes versus us, which was all kind of homemade.
You could agree that this is not the atypical experience.
Quite.
Quite. Yes. Quite.
One of the things,
Quite.
actually, when I met you, is you said, "What I really like is guests that are very relatable," and I'm like, "Oh."
Well, this might not be, might be.
But, pero, I think the feeling of the situations is
Yes.
highly relatable. And then when I went out into greater society, where it's kind of a more watered down version of an intense cult,
Yes.
and intense relationship dynamics, and intense, I saw the patterns of it,
Yes.
but I just saw that the people weren't actively aware that they were engaging in these patterns.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And my father was very funny, but also sometimes not. He would call himself God with a small G. It was his way of staying humble.
I see. I see. With the small G.
Fair.
God with small G. I would imagine, though, an immense, because how old was your father at this time?
Gosh, probably would have been 26, maybe.
Young man, lots of responsibility. And so he's God with a small G, right? But at a certain point, though, he decides that this is not the right.
Yeah. It got
This is
stuff
not right.
got weird.
The British court, there's a British court case that found that the group, Children of God, was an authoritarian cult which engaged in the systemic physical and sexual abuse of children. And the founder, David Berg, is claimed to, at one point in the 1970s, he claimed to have 10,000 full-time members in 130 communities around the world.
Yeah.
I would imagine it is what the British court found. That's what inspired your father to get out,
Yes.
right? Did you witness any of that?
Um, Not in the way that I've read about others who've been in other chapters, and some of the people the kids that were raised in some other ones that I've
Okay.
met and known, in different, and what, like some people got like, deep in the Venezuela, in fact, the Phoenix family grew up, like not all of them maybe, but some of the kids there, like River Phoenix, Joaquin, in the Venezuelan jungle. So it was a completely different, and then with that, some people I know, like, got moved 27 times to 27 different ones, and were, definitely, I think, there were some people in my, family that, my brother, that did. But what I really, I think I was such a freaky child to them, because I remember my father saying, "Why can't you be more childlike like your sister Daisy?" And I would say, "Statistically impossible." I was kind of like Wednesday Addams. I don't know how else to describe
You
it.
know, it's interesting because that's how I see you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But really, that's how I see you as, the rules that were given to you, you just laughed at them.
I just thought, like, um, you know, basically, yeah. I mean, and that court finding, is true, and it's horrific, and it's done much damage. I think we skirted on the edge. I think because of my father's position, there was protection.
Yes. So your father literally, he escapes
Yeah,
the cult.
yeah.
Um,
My mom got left behind in it because at that point he'd had out legally, but like two wife kind of thing. Yeah,
okay. So did he take his second wife?
yeah,
Okay. So he takes his second wife, who's not your mother,
yeah.
but he takes you. But what I'm curious about is where did you feel safe as a little girl?
No.
Nowhere. So there's nowhere that you feel safe by the age of
I've
5?
been asked that a lot, quite, "Do you feel safe now?" And that was not a real word in my life that and kinda even now, that's not I've worked a lot on nervous system reset, things like that, but yeah, I don't think that was I think I had moments, but I think I learned when kinda the rug got pulled out to don't trust that moment.
Exactly. And would you say that the only person that you felt you can trust was yourself? Okay. Okay. So your father then takes you, his second wife, your brother,
Mm. Well, actually, my brother and I got sent to the US without them.
without them.
And I remember crying because they served us food that, I come from Italy, and that food was like when you start at that level, everything else.
There he is.
Then now
Yes.
you got American 1980s food.
Yeah, it was probably right out the microwave.
It was shocking.
Yes.
My brother and I, we were in a supermarket. We'd never been in a supermarket. We'd never heard music coming in through speakers, so we would kind of hug our ears. And then we also saw bright orange cheese, which we thought was the funniest thing in the world. So we were like that. And then someone said, "You're going to be living here now." We're like,
Yeah.
and then we started crying.
Look
But
at that.
the joke was on us.
Oh my gosh. But I can imagine though that this is an awakening and it's probably a nightmare,
Yeah.
right, that you're going through. But this was your father's family.
Yeah.
So then is that your first time learning English?
No, I understood it. I knew English. I just refused to speak it. I just was like,
It's beneath me.
it's beneath me.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know where I got that from, but I did. I think it was also just the people that were like, "You're so lucky we saved you." And I was like, and I just was like, "Oh no." And that this kind of, I thought, arrogance that really bothered me,
Yes.
still bothers me.
Yes.
A
Yes.
misplaced arrogance. Yeah.
Why the name change? And who was it? Was it your family?
No,
No.
it was an administrator at the military base school.
Really?
And I've kind of, and I remember what she said, this lady, and I remember being very small and her leaning over, and it was kind of like a scene in a movie, and her saying, and I remember it was just such a vile. I didn't understand what Mexicans were or what that great country is or their history. I didn't know anything about that, but she said, "You don't want to sound Mexican,"
Oh, wow. That's what it was.
straight up, and that like actually what a dramatic, almost sliding doors moment. I think Rose has a soft name. I think Rose, which isn't actually my name, but sounds to me like a bit of a velvet fist with some spikes on it. Beautiful but thorny. It'll cut you. I think also I think I never even as a child perceived myself as a child. People would say, "How old are you?" And I would say 73,312. How old are you? And then they'd be like, scurry away.
Right. Right.
But I just felt that old. I just felt ancient. I felt like I
Yes.
was like part of time somehow. And I think partially why I've kind of lived maybe a unique life or kept kind of that brain is because I didn't have that um, kind of like groundwork from a very small child of the same kind of programming that others got. I got different programming, but it was
Yes.
so obvious I could reject it, most of it. Some stuck, but a lot I could push back on. But the other stuff was just, I was old enough to be like, well, that's goofy. I just can't. Not that I'm contrarian, I'm not. Like honestly, I'm not that fluffed about that many things, but I just didn't like, who would I be if I was, and then later having to be all these different characters.
Right.
That's when I got lost, but I did, luckily had a strong sense of self, I think. I don't know if that's lucky or unlucky. Don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's blessed to have a strong sense of self, especially at that age, because I think about my children, what I want for them to, more than anything, is I want them to be kind, independent thinkers. You know, that's what I want. And it sounds like that's precisely who you were. You were kind, independent thinker.
Yeah.
But you just mentioned that that was during the period where some thorns came out. I, I,
Mm,
I'm I'm assuming here a lot of this friction was between your mother's boyfriend.
mm.
Was she married to somebody else?
Some marriages, yes.
Okay, so the men in her life
Mhm.
and you. There was just friction.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did not like each other.
Okay. When you think back to moments that stay with you from that time, what are those moments?
I knew one liked blondes.
Okay.
My little sisters had blonde hair. I would see him coming down the hallway. I had short, dark hair. I always kept my hair short. Um, and I remember standing in front of him and spitting in his face and knowing it was like, okay, let's go. But it was a distraction and it worked.
Wow.
And a lot of that, they don't remember that. Like, I've seen the eyes dilate, um, like that person's eyes dilate when it's like almost like a hunting thing, right?
Yes.
Like an animal thing.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud that a lot of this is not really in their memory.
But it's in yours. You were 10, 11? Yeah. So you're 11, and you are, in essence, trying to be the best defender to them as possible. So it's interesting when you refer to the thorns. I mean, to me, this sounds like these are positive. These are for you because you are being the protector. You've now um, evolved into another version of yourself, and it's incredibly unfortunate that it's these circumstances that have required that evolution. But you have now risen to the occasion in essence because you I mean at 11 anything goes left when I'm 11, I'm running away. You were running towards it and you were protecting your siblings. So you are now, to me, it sounds like you're evolving. But do you consider these to be thorns or a bad thing for you?
I guess I've always been told that they were a bad thing. Like, "Oh, you're thorny." Like, or actually, that's was my mom. But, it is I think I have always perceived them as bad, but I think also I have recently, very recently, started realizing that it is a special, unique skill set, maybe not, one that is the most ideal, but, like, there is, like, a certain, like, born identity level skill set that I possess.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And it's saved me in later, in even most recent years,
yes,
quite.
yes. So you would have these experiences with your mother, then you would go off to with your father. Were you having similar experience with your father? Was it different? It
No,
was
totally different.
totally different.
Totally different. There, it would be like he had a friend for like one of his best friends was like a chef at the White House. So they'd
Oh
be
my
having
goodness.
like 4-day roasts and cookouts, like with like amazing food. And we were living in a town called Evergreen in Colorado, which is very beautiful. The Rocky Mountains, idyllic, like ice skating in the winter on the pond, um, and just I had friends there. I think I did, and but I was also a weird kid still. Shocking.
So
Shocking, but true. Uh, I remember, yeah, I just like but there, and it was really interesting. Just one plane ride from where I was in Oregon or Washington to this other state, and one place where I was made fun of and put down for certain things. The other place, I was became wildly popular instantly, and I remember being very suspicious of that and thinking, but the people that are really mean to me and trying to kill me, that's an overreaction. They don't know me,
right.
but you also don't know me.
But you're
A-
being celebrated over here.
And granted, that's easier, but I'm also not buying it entirely because you also, it was so, but again, going back to that thing of like, it was always so, there was not a lot of shades of gray.
Yes.
Everything was always so extreme.
So this is an age where we're really beginning to figure out what our identity is, especially visually,
Mm.
right? This is where self-esteem and self-worth and, ego crops in. What was your perception of self? Because we're calling you Wednesday, right? But we're adults.
Yeah.
We're we're
I'm adult
mature.
squared.
But we're like, okay, Wednesday is cool from our
Right.
from our place of privilege. But at that point, though,
Oh, it was
how did you though see yourself? For example, did you feel like you were pretty? Did you feel like you were
so that's interesting because I would be told I was ugly a lot, but um, uh, I I remember looking in a mirror and being like, okay, my nose, like I remember thinking it's symmetrical. I don't know what these people are talking about. So it wasn't that I thought like, oh, I'm so beautiful. And in fact, looking back, I think I looked like kind of an elegant 11-year-old small boy prince,
okay?
but not Prince Prince.
Right.
Is he a prince?
Okay. I
But
see.
just
I
like
see.
a prince, a little prince almost. Like I did very delicate features. But I remember just looking at it mathematically and thinking like, I don't really see what they're, everything seems to kind of line up. Okay, they must be wrong. I just went about my way. And then my mother said at one point that I grew a chest like overnight. So that must be weird to see as a parent. At
Yes,
least you don't have that.
this is true. This is true.
But I also was like, I don't know, it was cool. Like when I was 13, I ran away from a situation that I was put in. A stepdad was like, kind of did this whole thing, and she has the makings of a drug addict, I guess was the whole thing. And I think it was really just get her out of here because I was trying to warn her again. So
She has the makings.
makings.
So
I didn't know what they were. So yeah, I kind of got like hijacked on the way to school and thrown on the top floor of this hospital. And I was like, what?
for your stepfather, he wants you out. He then does what?
I mean, this is that part I don't know, but it was this kind of like, hey, honey, let me drive you to school. And I was like, something weird is happening. This is a weird tone. And so we'd rock up or drive. My mom's driving. And all of a sudden, I'm like, this isn't the way to the school. And we're driving into, it was called Sacred Heart Hospital in Eugene, Oregon. And these kind of orderly dudes like pull me out of there. And the next thing you know, I'm on the top floor of this. It was a regular hospital, but the very top floor was like a kind of drug unit or something.
Interesting.
And it was, uh, you know, adults, like adult with drug problems or people trying to seek help for it. I don't know. But I would say to these doctors or counselors, I would say, I, I'm 13. Or I'm about to turn 13. I don't even know what you're talking about. And I would say, I'm not a drug addict. And they would say, you're in denial. And I would say, oh, that's very clever. I can't get out of that. That's very clever. Very clever.
If I
Yeah.
can. So prior to that point, though, you're not a drug addict, but had you used drugs?
I did go to the 8th grade dance at this one place, and the only school dance I'd ever been to. And this guy, who looking back was much older than the other kids there, maybe he'd been held back. He said, do you want to hallucinate at the dance? And he had this little white square, which later I found out was LSD. And it was the tiniest little square. And not knowing what drugs were, not knowing what hallucination was, not knowing anything, I said, I'm sure that's not enough, and took the entire thing, which was, the rest of the square.
Okay.
And then there's this group of like 30 girls outside that wanted to beat me up. And apparently I just wandered through them with my arms out like Jesus, making weird sounds, just like, oh, And yeah, so that, and then my mom dragged me inside. I got dumped out on the lawn. And then I think that was the end to.
Gotcha. So they witnessed that happen
Yeah.
and said, okay, she must be an addict. Or has the makings.
That's a real
has the
stretch.
makings.
The makings of,
The
right,
makings
yeah.
of an addict.
I was very upset because they said you'll have to be here for like a year. And I was
Oh my goodness.
like, what? Like that? No. What?
And that's a year of not being released,
Yeah.
not being able to go home.
They would take us to make us play like some basketball or something. Again, I'm like this tall, and they had bars on the windows of the van, like protect. It was super weird. And so then I just leaned into it. I would say, well, due to my massive LSD consumption, I can't tell if there's 1 or 20 basketballs coming at me. I really can't play. So and then I kind of became the ringleader of all these weirdos. at that the whole thing was just, like, peak absurdity, and I think luckily I've always, like, had a like, I've just always seen kind of abstract, weird humor in kind of perilous, kinda crap situations.
Yes. So this is in essence, this is, rehab
Yeah.
that they've placed you in, and also, it's the fact that you don't need it. How long were you away for?
I escaped.
You escaped.
I rolled out like, I climbed over a fence from their basketball area, and just that was
Okay.
and then I met 2 drag queens who legitimately were performing drag and a stripper named Tina, and then I hit the road with them, and then I learned a lot about drugs and decided LSD was the way of I was like, "Yes,
Was the
please.
way to go.
Let's step
Goodness.
it up. Level," like, I've
So
always been like,
going to
"It's
rehab
weird.
it
Let's
actually
level it
taught
up."
you.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know anything about any of that before, but now I knew. I was like, "Alright, let's go." What I left out of all of this is that what was my big saving grace and how I related and understood psychology of the big, wide, scary world was books. I started figuring out where all my favorite authors from the US were buried, and I decided to go on this journey, and the police didn't really know what to do with me. I would say, "I know where my mom," she changed her phone number, "but I know the address. Can you please buy me a bus ticket to," one of them was, Memphis, Tennessee,
Okay.
and one of them was Ketchum, Idaho. Hemingway
I mean,
buried there,
yes.
right, exactly, and one of them so I would just whatever I did, they would just buy me a bus. I think I was a lot less paperwork, and it was a totally different time, it was not electronic. Then I would go to my authors' graves, and I would read them a passage and then move along. I just needed a destination, I think. I decided, I was like, "Okay, I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm hungry, no one's looking for me, I don't know where I am. Okay, how can we make this fun?"
Right. If we
That's always been kind of how I've been.
if we spend a second on the "no one's looking for me."
That part bummed me out.
Yes.
And that actually didn't really realize until kind of not that long ago. I was like, "Oh, I was able to work that hustle with the police in these different states because there was nobody looking for me, because there was nothing, nobody, nobody notified any police." I imagine it was just a relief. I have no idea. It is weird. That is an odd one.
Yeah, so at 13, your parents don't notify anyone, any authority that you're missing. Okay.
But eventually I got quite tired of being quite tired and cold, very
Yes.
cold, and hungry. I did call my aunt, and she sent me a ticket and came and met me and got me, and I stayed with her for a while.
Okay, and where'd your aunt live?
Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington. Okay,
And then I became 14 there.
there you go. Wow.
Exactly.
You lived 10 lives by
Right.
14.
I know. Some people be like, "Is Hollywood the weirdest and craziest thing that's happened to you?" I'm like, "No."
No.
Just with it was a different weird cult language, but, that I didn't really understand, but, no, not the weirdest, and not the most interesting, to be honest,
No.
and not the most unique, and not the most vibrant, and not the most fun,
No.
and not the most artistic,
No.
but it could've been, but it
Yes.
wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I'm curious, at 14,
I was tired.
you're tired.
I
What
needed a nap.
you needed you're tired, but what's your outlook on life at 14? Because I remember at 14, my son is 15, my oldest is 15. He's beginning to get an inkling of, here's what I would like to do.
Mhm,
Here's a path I would like
mhm.
to take. What was your thought on where you wanted to go at 14?
Well, from a very young age, before I'd even seen a screen, I knew I would somehow be on it, but not in a way that was like, it was just like, "I know this. Okay. So I should probably study for this." I would watch, anytime an old film came on, and I would study their body language and their posture and how they would, hold and how almost their faces moved with the light. And I would study, and then I would put like a sheet on myself and make it into a long evening gown. And at time, I'm not the only kid that's done this, obviously, but I just knew I was training for destiny.
Um, you we could go as deep or light as you want to, but I would imagine home was not nice during
N
this time.
no, my dad went through was going, through a very bad patch in his life, and I didn't, and I, at this point, was just very, mad at this all the situations. I was pissed off. I thought I kinda found safety living with my aunt, but then she's like, "Oh, great news, your dad is moving here," and I was like, I hadn't seen him in a while.
But historically, though, things were good with your father. It was
Somewhat, yeah, yeah, but then when I went to I'd seen him, I think, like, maybe a year before, and it was like it was different. He was, angry. I think he was very good with smaller children. I think also, and I saw this with my sisters, like, or people that could look at people with this kind of worshipful eyes, and even as a child, I think that's what he meant when he said, "Why can't you be, like, childlike?" And I think I was my father's instant karma. I was the one in the corner of the room, like, I couldn't lie. Some people, a lot of people need to kind of, wear masks and they love, people looking at them with adulation. It's certainly nice, but as a requirement to have someone be around you to be able to give that to somebody, I've never been able to perform that task.
okay.
I can't do it.
And you believe he
He
needed
needed
that.
that, and I, at that point, was hard opposite. I could not give it, and he, like, bad situation with my stepmom that he likely caused. I think at this point, he was a bit, imbalanced. The month before Christmas every year would be a month of raging against capitalism and consumerism. Not wrong, but also very stressful for kids who just want a tree and maybe a present or, like, something. So it was I could see both sides, but he couldn't fit back in the regular world. There wasn't a place for him, and I think it just got, a bit, and so I think also when you marry someone younger than you, eventually they grow up and you're not kinda so they broke up,
Oh,
and
this
he
is his second wife.
right, and he was in a real, like, I had never heard this term. I would get screamed at that I was a feminazi all the time, and I was like, "What? Wait, what's that?" Like, I think for him, I was his nightmare of living with me, and he was my nightmare of having to live with him, and it was a bad year. I used to plot his murder in my closet at night, and I had like a chicken mallet, and I had this, idea that I was going to read this monologue of, like, all these things that he'd done while then bashing him to death with this. I mean, the idea that someone would stay still for that is absurd, but yeah, it was on, and it was randomly. I think he had no idea how to express anything, and I was there,
You were
and
there.
that sucked.
Yeah.
I translated this later. When I lived with him, he would say, like, "You're not worth buying silverware for. You're not worth buying a bed for."
But Ross, I mean, these stories are
But
also
but I really think because what he really wanted to say is, "I have no money. This divorce, everything collapsed. I'm an artist. The art market has crashed. I'm terrified. I'm despondent. I have no way forward in this society. I don't fit in here. I do something that's not valued anymore. My mode of art, airbrush, is not. Computers are here. There's all these things,
right.
but he couldn't. So what you do is you just, and I think this again, when you to your thing of backstage, like relatability, I think that is a common thing with a lot of people that they're told something or that something is their fault when they're a child or even older, but really it's the other person, like, because if they had to probably acknowledge all the things they were afraid of, they might break.
Yes, yes. So with this perspective of grace that you give over your father, right? I'm curious about your opinion of this.
'Kay.
Ready for this?
Uh,
When you see this, how would you describe it, and how do you feel looking at this?
he had a couple more years to live after this, so maybe like 1.5. I think he loved me very deeply, and I loved him. I think I was, on my 2nd year of a show called Charmed. That's why I have the hair color. He hated Hollywood, but couldn't explain why to me in a way that I could understand and in a way that I could hear. and I think he loved me very deeply.
Yes. Yes. I know he did. I don't even have to have met him to know that he did. And I thought how you just described the challenges that he had was so eloquent because I think this is it's one of these where I've learned the older that I get, I can see, and you loved him. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Is the older that I get, the more grace I give to everyone, but also my parents.
Yeah.
And you realize when they grew up, what what they had to witness, what they were not, the grace they were not given, what society was like, what limitation of the tools that they had to then go out and raise a child or raise children, and how a lot of these expressions were expressions of frustration.
Yes.
And that's exactly, and the fact that you know this allows you to see that he actually did love you.
Yeah.
And I think there's beauty in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a cool cat, but really, God, I just some people just it's too, it's too much.
It's too much.
And I think I was always stronger than him. But he's also taught me a way of seeing the world, or maybe taught or just jibed with that viewpoint. And he would take me in Seattle with to like do AIDS hospice and like just sit with people and hold their hands.
Yes. Yes. I'll tell you what's going to stay with me forever is your father taking you hunting for colors.
Pretty cool, huh?
That's pretty cool. That's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Ever. Hunting for colors. Yeah.
And that makes honestly me more proud of him than anything else. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you for that acknowledgement.
It is. It's very cool. I'm incredibly grateful right now for the One Better Guide by our sponsor, Adobe Express, for helping me to elevate one of the most important moments of the year for me, and that is the Amber Rising campaign at Sutton United. Amber Rising is a campaign I started last year to help increase the number of people attending football matches who had never been before. It was such a great day. There were so many incredible moments that we captured lots of content. Now, I want to share with you a clip. It's one of my favorites of the day. It's a mother with her two kids.
Didn't think we'd actually enjoy it as much. I thought this one would be more into it.
Now, the audio wasn't great on that clip, but that's where the One Better Guide comes in. I couldn't help but recall a lesson from Lucy Warner about refining the small details so that your audience feels cared for. So I open Adobe Express, drop the clip in, click Enhance Speech, and it lifts her voice to a place where it's crystal clear.
Didn't think we'd actually enjoy it as much. I thought this one would be more into it.
So much better now. This tiny 1% adjustment allows me to share the heart of what Amber Rising is all about to the people who made that day so special. So if you want to unlock the One Better Guide for free, you could find it yourself in Adobe Express. Just a heads up, this next section includes discussion of sexual assault. Please watch with care. So how do you go from a 14-year-old in Seattle, living with your father, to Hollywood?
I saw a flyer that someone had posted for like you could be an extra in a movie for $35 a day, and I was like, all right. So I did that, and I wound up funny being cast as a. I've never seen this movie. It does look absurd, but it was some robot cyborg teachers, you see,
Oh, really?
as
Okay.
as they do, and I was in a gang called the Black Hearts, and I had their little drawn black heart on my this little cherub face, this little round head, and it was funny because you could just I have seen clips of it, and I had no dialogue, but they definitely made me a featured extra, and so like there'd be in this classroom scene, you just see my little head just kind of like like it was so dumb.
So that was your first film?
Yeah, and then I met this kid on it that was it was like a child star, and had been in to me, one of my favorite vampire movies, Near Dark, and a movie called River's Edge.
So how is it that you specifically get from or go from Seattle to, is it LA?
An Amtrak.
That's specifically how you did it.
You asked.
But by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember the leaving. I do remember feeling very badly. I told my little brother at that point had come to live with my dad and I felt very, very bad about having to leave him with my dad at the stage my dad was in. But I also knew that I was either going to kill my dad with a chicken mallet or he would kill me. And I felt really bad leaving my brother, but I couldn't do it anymore. And I also knew this was my shot out,
All right.
my way out.
Did you have anything lined up? No, because you're 14.
Right, but I did have the child actor on the set that I'd made friends with, and his mother, Susan Miller, who they were kind of ensconced. They were like from old Hollywood in a way, like the history of them, and they took me in. So I lived in this big house in an area called Hancock Park,
Wow.
and they got me an audition, and I auditioned. And I got one line in a movie with Brendan Fraser and Pauly Shore called Encino Man.
Encino Man, yes.
And I remember being very upset that they wouldn't give it was a night shoot. It was nighttime, and the extras were cold, and they wouldn't give them hot coffee. And I remember thinking, the producers, and I remember just thinking, like, it just felt like there's some. And then I thought, oh, these people are not for me. These people are not cool. This is not my vibe. I love Brendan, and that was cool, but no. And then I actually, my mom moved to Los Angeles, and we had a really beautiful, I think it was like 6 or 7 months together, and I actually did like a semester at Hollywood High,
Okay.
which is where some very famous people went to school. And I did my one theater experience was there, and I played Antigone, who, you know,
Yes.
I remember that was really powerful, and that was cool. I really actually did well with those people. They were the first time I was around younger people, because I'd also, like, at 14 in Seattle, was, like, being photographed, and had a boyfriend that was, like, 36, who would drop me off a block away from my dad boyfriend. Didn't understand. Later, I'm like, I just didn't relate to people my age. I didn't know what.
You had a boyfriend who's 36 when you were 14.
Yeah, I did not understand. Now I'm like, oh, now I understood with obviously with hindsight, like when he would take me to parties, people would be like, and I just thought maybe they thought I was ugly or freaky, because that was how I interpreted when people would look at me weird.
Was that at 14, was that your first boyfriend? That was your first relationship?
And he would show me, like, French films with, like, older men and, like, the classic grooming crap, but make it art.
Yes.
And now I'm like, no wonder my dad would have killed you, and rightfully so.
Oh, yeah. So that was, how long was that relationship?
I mean, it was a relationship. I don't know. I mean, 6 months,
6 months. Okay.
and then I left. Yeah,
And then you left.
yeah.
I tell you though,
But
I can see that your entire life was not a 14-year-old's life
no.
whatsoever.
So I didn't know where do I fit, And
Yes.
honestly, like there were times when I would walk down the street in some of these places I lived, when I was younger, and I would look at families, through windows, not like in a creeper way, but in a way almost, kind of, especially around the holidays. I would see, like, it just, and I would like both confused, comforted, and jealous at the same time, because it was like this really, like, I know I've met some people that have been like, well, I can't compete with your life, and I'm like, no, you're like a more stable, beautiful, consistent, safe. Uh, that's exotic and beautiful to me. That to me is highly interesting.
Yes.
And I felt really bad for a lot of these Hollywood kids, like their parents were very wealthy, working very hard, but would kind of slip a check from the accountant under the door and like let that be it.
That's it. No
No.
intimacy. Just here's the
No, so
money.
these kids were, like, spoiled, obnoxious, rich, lonely, empty.
Your mother, she must have known she was going to leave. Why was she leaving? Where was she leaving to go?
She went back to at that point, I think she went back to Washington State and to my youngest brother who, that was good.
Okay.
Um, and, um had fallen for someone, and maybe it was job too, I don't know that, but moved, yeah.
Okay. So she
But we had actually a great time for that 6 or 8 months. It was really I had a brilliant time with her. We had this really, really cute 1920s little bungalow right dead in Hollywood now, like, I know, like, you wouldn't live in that area. It was, like, a sketchy area, but it was a real house. It was a really beautiful time, and I got to be with my mom.
yeah. This is the first time that I can think from knowing your story all the way through to this age. So you are 15.
15.
You're 15. This is the first time that you've had what would be considered to be a safe family environment, a safe home.
Safe home. Yeah, yeah.
So this is. So the fact that then your mother wants to leave, that must
That sucked.
that must be terrible for you.
Yeah, that was not ideal, but I also, um there was no place for me, like, really, because my dad was as he was when I'd left him, and, then with my mom, it would be there was no and I couldn't return to that world. I'd already been in this world, I'd already been, I'd already been around, like, some quite famous, now I knew like, how famous these people were, like, from legendary older actors, like, from back in the day that would be at the Hancock Park house that I was staying at with them. So I was exposed to, you know, a different level of, kinda unique fabulousness. And again, I'd been raised on these kind of classic films with this idea of classic Hollywood, and that was kind of very much around me.
Yes.
But by the time I was 15 and a half, I'd gone to court, to legally emancipate myself. I don't know what they call that in the UK, but essentially divorcing your parents so you can have autonomy. You can have a bank account. You could, I wasn't old enough to drive, but I did that. And I remember that I remember feeling I had gotten very few compliments in my life on my mind. And I remember the judge saying, "You would make a fine lawyer." So like, oh,
Look at
that was
that.
good.
Look at that. Nice compliment at 15.
Mhm.
But you're emancipated now. So you are responsible for yourself
Mhm.
at 15, responsible for where you're going to live. What's the next film for
It
you?
was a wild movie. It was called The Doom Generation. And honestly, it's super bananas crazy, but I love it. Visually, it was so cool. It was so cool. So many artists working on it, like the crew and like every level of department. Really amazing. But there was it also felt like really like kind of sexist too in a lot of ways behind the scenes. Like I was some stuff was like they laid me on top of it's not the actor's fault. They laid me on top of his body face to face for the chemistry thing, and he had an erection, and that's not his fault. You just laid a girl on top of him and then now say the lines for the camera. There was no scene in the movie that was that, but I kind of floated out of my body. So I quickly realized I was like, okay, no one's going to protect you again. And that was, okay, you're on your own in a way, but I also still understood how to deal with and then before the movie came out, I'm on the cover of Interview magazine, a very famous magazine. I'm on the cover of all
So
the
life really changes for you just like that. But even in that process, okay, help me understand
Mm,
this because I think I understand Rosa.
yeah.
Right.
Rose gets confused.
Yes. But I feel like this is the begin this is Rose almost
Yeah.
because to me, correct me if I'm wrong here, Rosa would have walked away the moment that something went slightly awry on that set or didn't feel as if it was in her eyes as right. She would have said, "I'm I'm done."
Yeah. I think something to do with the fact that I was homeless again. And that when she asked me if I wanted to be, I said, "Well, how much money does it pay?" And that it was 10,500. And I realized a very small amount of money, but with that, I could get a flat. I could get an apartment. I could live somewhere.
All right.
That was why.
All right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Then all of a sudden, I'm being sent around the world at film festivals. People when it premiered at Sundance Film Festival, like, like, there was, like, a real like, some people walked out, like, one person vomited, the director was like, "Yes," which I kind of thought was punk and amazing, and other people really loved it. My father, I told him, "Don't go see this movie," when it played at the Seattle Film Festival, and, um and again, I didn't understand at this point. I knew because I had a topless scene. Um, I think my character was, like, kind of, like, sad in a bathtub, and then my dad, I thought, I told him not to go, but he did. And then he chased the director, out and tried to beat him up in the alley, which now I'm like, "Well, fair play."
Did he? Did he?
But he didn't tell me that. The director, I told him.
Gotcha.
But my dad didn't and he did say, like, "Well, congratulations on officially being a whore."
That's what your father
And that
told you.
we didn't talk for about 5 years after that, yeah, yeah. I think he saw and understood more about the machine of Hollywood than I did. But at the time, I was like, "No, these are cool people, this is good." And so I was like, pass.
Right, right. So from that film,
Basically, I think it was Scream.
okay, Scream was the next one.
Maybe, like, 1 or 2. I can't remember the order. And very quickly, once you get, like, the agent and the manager, now I'm like this person with that life before, but now I'm dealing with contracts and lawyers and managers and agents and business managers and percentages and the people that I would kind of audition against, the other girls, would be people that usually started at, like, 6 months old with, like, a stage mom who would say, like, "Oh, watch out for that person or this
Yes.
person," or, like, they kinda knew the lay of the land. I was like and I mean, looking back historically, there's very few without nepotism, like, with, like, even, like, they might appear like they just were there organically, but their dad might be a famous cinematographer or something like that, right? So I really had I'd only seen these old movies as my preparation for Hollywood.
I was going to ask
Mhm.
about the apparatus because what I imagine, to your point, is you had no, like, you didn't have family
I
giving
couldn't
opinion.
no, I couldn't ask anybody anything.
No, it's literally you. So you then, I would imagine after that first film, you definitely have manager, agent, maybe publicist.
Yeah.
Do you have, what does your social circle look like though? Do you have friends that are besties that you can go, no, I mean, no one, just you.
No, it's always really lonely. Also and I can say this not in any kind of arrogant way because in some way, I was like, for a while, like, a freakishly beautiful young woman. Like, to that period, there was not filters, there was not, like, the plastic surgery, not like, injections, none of that. It was like, at that point, to either be a supermodel or on screen, you almost had to be at a freakish, like, Olympian level of, not just of talent, but also of looks. Like, it had to be also unique in a way, and to kind of break in that way was I also had a really wild story that made for catnip for the press. It was interesting, but it was never the way it was told was never, like, kinda real or in depth, but it was and I always gave good quotes. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just had to pretend, but it was at that point, it was just like, no, a lot of times, like, I would have an amazing photo shoot, this great, kind of artistic experience with incredible makeup and cool hair and a cool outfit, but after it was done, I would just go home and watch an old movie because I didn't have anyone to go out with or do anything with.
The perspective that I think so many of us looking from the outside in would think, no, Rose McGowan had a whole crew of people at the house, and no, it was
I was also quite shy. I saw, someone posted like a clip of a behind the scenes interview with me when I was doing Scream. I was like, I was looking down. I was like very shy, and I could act a really good game, right? Like, but I intrinsically, I was like, I didn't. Um, I was like in a. I could handle being like arrested in the cops, and I could give it to them and know like what I was doing there. But in this fancy world, it was very destabilizing, and I love the other actors, the co-stars, the director, all that movie was very, very special, but, everybody would talk about, the boss, um, this loser named Harvey Weinstein.
I didn't realize he was over
He owns
screen. Yeah.
He's a producer. They were always, like, kinda scared he would come to set. The only thing I would hear would be this kind of, like, fear when people would mention him, and I think what people don't understand, one, you know, that movie, and then I immediately got cast in a second movie for his company
Okay.
where I was playing a 16-year-old. Um, and in the middle of that film, my heart's racing, I got sent to Sundance again. And the first Sundance was fun. Like, we got to go to these, like, kinda cool parties that were more, like, organic, like, kinda cool, like, kinda after hours type parties with, like, indie filmmakers, so it was kinda punk DIY thing. Now this thing was a totally different machine. And at this point, there was, like, a camera crew from MTV following me that day. It was like, Rose McGowan, A Day in the Life, 24 hours with her, right? And, I had 4 films. I'd done 4 films, and they hadn't come out yet, but they gave me 4 days off from the movie where I was playing a 16-year-old to called Phantoms to, go do my press obligations at Sundance, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, nobody else had ever had 4 movies in competition there. It was a really big deal,
Yes.
and, I mean, that's what they were all telling me. So I am in the theater for one of the movie screenings, and my manager, this woman, um, I see she's behind me, and I see this kind of big pockmarked kind of shadow behind me that she's talking to, and it was Weinstein, and everybody who ever talked about this man, they would like with fear. I think it was like the mafia boss, really,
Yes.
honestly, and he was big and giant and tough, and I would see, like, grown men shake if he walked in the room, like adult men that were, like, power players, they would, like, start physically shaking, the terror. I think it's hard for people to kinda understand the level of control and power, even though he wasn't maybe making the most money out of anybody, if there's something about his situation that had a lock and a hold on people.
What do you think it was about the situation? Because I've heard stories, people tell. We actually had a guest, Marilyn class, who had an experience, unfortunately, with
Where
with
yeah,
with 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 him, but would talk about the power
mhm,
that he exuded.
mhm.
What do you think it was about his positioning that gave him that
I don't
level of
think it was just
authority?
I think he was a thug. I think it was like almost like not the mafia boss of the cool kind with the suit, like like the Marlon Brando, Godfather type, but more like a street way. But and I think he used that whole casting couch thing as his cover for a
Yeah.
long time because that wasn't his thing. Of course, there were sad girls or people that would sleep with that to get ahead. That wasn't what he liked. He liked finding the special ones, and I think it was like a glutton. It was like eating. I think he like wanted to suck their soul. But I think in my situation, that camera crew was following me, and I'd seen the night before at the premiere of one of my movies at Sundance. I'd seen my manager and him, their heads together, and she's very excited afterwards, and she's like, "Tomorrow morning, you have a meeting at 10 a.m. at the Stein Erickson Lodge," which was like the fanciest hotel, kind of there. Um, in the dining room, you'll have breakfast with your boss and discuss your future with the company. At this point, Gwyneth Paltrow, like, maybe already won an Oscar or was like on her way to. And it was like, if you're one of the chosen ones, this is your wonderful
You
life,
gotcha. And
right?
so he was looked at as the star maker.
Right. And I was already a star. Like, the movie I'd made was already like on its way to making, I don't know how many billions is made by now, but a lot. Everything in hindsight, every detail leading up to that moment, I could see how orchestrated it was to get me into the position that I was in. From the maitre d' of the restaurant saying, "Oh, no, he's delayed on calls and would like you to go upstairs," to the presidential suite, and it's always put in the press, which he, later bought off against me for well over 2 decades. I'll explain more of that later, but, I turned to the MTV cameras, and I turned to them, and I said, "I think my life is finally getting easier." And that was what I kicked myself for. I felt like that was the one thing a lot of people blame themselves for, like, if I hadn't have done this, I kind of that was the only thing that I could grab onto, that I could say I wish I hadn't done, because anything else, it was just this. And when people think they present it as if you're opening a door in a hotel and there's the bed. No, dummies, this is a presidential suite. This is where like the presidents stay. It has 3 offices. It's massive. Also, I was supposed to be in the dining room, but then they're like, he's finishing up calls. So then I go and I knock on the door. These 2 assistants come out and I'm like, good morning. And they wouldn't look at me.
Really?
They would not look at me, and I remember thinking, like, "Dickheads, if one of you had just said, like, 'Watch out,' my street instincts would have kicked in."
Right.
But I really thought I was safe. I thought I was with fancy people, that I already had the jobs. I wasn't trying to get a job.
Right. And had you heard anything
No.
about
No.
okay.
The 4 movies I'd done leading up to that point were all filmed at night. I had very little contact with the outside world. I was filming back to back to back. Um, none of them were filmed in Hollywood. I didn't know I wasn't moving in social circles. I was still pretty unknown because Scream, I think, had just come out. I was just going to, but I wasn't like, I was on magazine covers and stuff like that. But I remember standing next to somebody at a newsstand thinking, oh, surely everyone's going to recognize me. Nobody did. There wasn't like a thing yet. Mm-mm.
Now, and was your manager invited to this meeting?
No. And later I learned she got a package deal to work at his company.
Okay. You could see the orchestration of it all. And the camera crew is no longer then filming you.
No, they stay outside. And so it's sitting actually quite like this. Quite just like this. Actually, more distance between. There was a big table in between us. You remember every moment of certain things. You replay every angle, every detail over and
Yes.
over and over.
And your thought is my life is about to get easier.
Well, I thought he's going to be so charmed by my knowledge of film. I hear he loves cinema. He talks about how he loves cinema. That's what we talked for the first 45 minutes of this hour-long meeting. Was just talking about film and cinema and classic films and this and that. And it was actually on my way out. I was almost out. I saw the door. And then it just kind of like a sideways pulled into like a room with like a hot tub. And the next thing it all happened, as people say that go through this, very fast and very slow. And the next thing I know, I'm like, have no clothes on, and I'm like, just like a statue. And I was just and then I just froze. And then there's literally no way that anybody could be like, yeah, this person's into this. No way. But what he would do, and I would find this out later, is that he would buy a journalist, they would write an article or a story, and he would say, I'm going to option this and turn this into an Oscar-winning film. And this was all documented and put out later, that he had a hit list. And he would buy the journalists all over the world. I mean, the level of this stuff is wild, right? I'm like, the scale of the full-time job behind the full-time job.
Right.
It's crazy to me because I'm lazy and not organized. But then he would say, I'm going to turn this into an Oscar-winning film. Sign on the dotted line. Here's it. And they would. And then he'd say, in exchange, if you ever see this person, and he would have a whole list. And I was number 1 at the red line through my name at the top. If you ever see them at a premiere, if you see a photograph of them, I want you to write the most disgusting article. They're a whore, they're a drug addict, they're stupid, they're trash, all this stuff. So that was like, well, but I didn't know that for years, how that had happened. I used to just think I must have killed a journalist in my past life. So immediately I go out to this photo call. I'm like super trauma, and then I started like short circuiting. First I get taken and there's all these cameras, and I tell the person standing next to me where I just come from, and his response, I was like, he knew.
I'm sorry, who asked you this? This is
That was actually the actor that had already done movies with him, and knew. And then I was like, what? And that kind of stuck him. I was like, what? But there's all these flashbulbs going on.
so the actor assumed that you had been assaulted.
He said,
Just
said,
assumed.
God damn it, I told him to stop doing this. That was the direct quote. And believe me, with every fiber of my being, every step of the way, I wish responses and things had been different. Really, truly.
Can I ask, and after an assault like that happens, how it was so orchestrated, the moment that you leave, do you feel as if you know, do you feel as if the world has then been everything is fake. Nothing is real.
That became over the course of the next days because I had 3 more premieres to go to, and that afternoon, I got on a flight, and I went back to LA, and I was like, I just was short-circuiting, I couldn't and I was being yelled at for doing that, but I was like I was it's like, your life before, your life after. Here's who you were before. This and here's you are. And now, um, then I immediately went to the management office, wherein he said, "I just had an LA Times expose on him killed. God damn it, he owes it to me not to do this." Weirdly, kind of the same pattern of and then I said, "I wanna see a criminal attorney." Years later, an assistant of mine much later said, "Oh, I met this woman. She wants to apologize to you. She was the actress hired to portray the criminal attorney."
So,
And so and she goes but I also knew that she was like, "You'll never win. You'll da, da, da." And so then I thought, "Oh," I had a couple thoughts. I thought, "Maybe if I go to therapy for 6 months, I can be who I was again before this happened." I don't know, just, like, kind of childlike in a way. And then the other thought was, like, I found out very quickly that he was making payments, like, every week,
two,
various people that he'd assaulted, various, like, uh, um, but they had to sign something called an NDA, a non-disclosure, and I'd never heard of this. And I asked and I said, "Well, if you sign a non-disclosure, what, um, oh, you mean you can never tell, like, your therapist or a friend or you never can?" In my mind, I was like, "Oh, then you can never heal from this." "Oh, I can't do that." So then I also thought, well, so I did something through, and I have the document. I provided that later document to the New York Times, which was, I said, I kind of tricked him. I said, I asked for the smallest number I could think of that would still seem reasonable. I didn't want 1,000,000 because then I'd have to sign an NDA. But if I asked for 100,000, then I had thought 2 things. I could buy a billboard. I wanted to buy a billboard and it said like, loser Weinstein is a rapist. But what that 100,000 got me was a document saying this is to buy peace. And but it was not a non-disclosure.
I see. I see. Which allowed you to be able
That
to
was the trick.
disclose.
I sometimes wonder, like, had I shut up, and this would be especially Oscar time, when I would see all these people thanking him. They calculated that he was thanked more times than God at the Oscars. They counted. Someone counted and did a supercut of every single person, because he was their God. And that's when I started really seeing the parallels to and how it operated. But I would go at that point, I had been on this trajectory that was like, boom. And then next thing, um, I'm already kind of like, then at that point, fame was hitting like outside of Hollywood. And people were coming up to me on the streets. I was causing disruptions wherever I went. And I'm thinking like, oh no, what other I caused kind of chaos at the time, like being very famous, like everyone's pointing and like, chasing after you and like, and autographs and all the stuff that you see, for experience. And I felt well and good. I felt well entrapped.
Well entrapped.
Yeah. I'm famous. Now I cause chaos when I just go to get coffee. That was all happening kind of at the same time, the outer world. These movies were hitting.
I see.
And I'm now like, I can't get, what job do I get? I can't go to school. What do I do?
Right. Is there a certain point where you realize that you're not being listened to
Uh, Very quickly.
very quickly?
I was like, "What?" The responses were so strange that I was like, "Wait, people knew about this? Wait, what?" And then actually, there was a voicemail on my phone. It was him. I still have this tape somewhere in storage, and
Okay.
it was he named off three actresses. "This is my special friend. This is my special friend. You're my new special friend." And I remember sliding down on the floor in the dark and just and those people still, they're very, very famous, and they have won Oscars, or one of them, and the other one They talk, it just is what it is. But I was not raised in that way, and I didn't understand. And honestly, if someone said, "Would you trade who you are, your soul, your spirit, your body to get this?" Fuck no. I'm not that person.
So what was his intention of that voice note?
Basically, if you shut up, here's the keys to the kingdom.
Gotcha. You can have an Oscar like this person or a talk show like this
And I
person.
just thought, I don't value what you value. That's the problem here.
Did you respond to that voice note or no?
No.
No.
And I did think, like, how did you get my number? Well,
Yes. Yes. At what moment do you become fearful? Because I would imagine that.
I became more despondent and angry.
Okay.
I would say, I think I just kind of caved in on myself.
Okay.
And then I was slated to do a movie. Really, I had to go back and finish playing the 16-year-old. That was,
Right. Because that's for his company.
and the attitude on that set, except for the great and wonderful Peter O'Toole that was in Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes.
We became friends on that set and stayed friends until he died. He was amazing, but he was certainly above that fray. But the other two kind of men on there, like it was like no longer would talk to me, look at me. It was immediate punishment of me. It was just the classic boring story. And really, if you took my story and put it to the 16-year-old cheerleader, of a football team who gets assaulted by the coach, and then the whole town turns against her because he's the famous one, and it's not dissimilar. It just went on and on and on and on. And so what I did though was like I just like at that point then I was the movies I was getting were much less savory, offers not as good, but I had to do. I was already famous. I did not know what else. Like I was
That's
just
the
felt
trap.
very trapped behind a screen, and I didn't know how to get out. And at that point, I'm Rose McGowan.
So over the last year, the amount of guests that we've had, women who have experienced sexual assault, has blown me away to the point where now I'm getting involved in campaigns for violence against girls and women, in particular here in the UK. And I think that um, a lot of what happens to boys is that there's no dialogue, there's no discussion around this whatsoever. And it's happening in isolation with our most toxic men. And when it is, when there's, when it's brought up, when it's mentioned, it's brought up as a joke. It's mentioned as a joke. And the room takes it as a joke. Oh yeah. Oh, but it's not attacked head on as it should be. Uh, and I have so many ideas around what we could be and should be doing as a society.
It's pretty staggering.
Staggering the numbers.
Do you, and I think that's amazing. I would say maybe we talk after, but to include some boys and men in that too.
In the
And then not just women and girls. Something that I learned that
Oh, I'm sorry, you're saying
was
violence against boys and men. Okay. Okay.
something that I was not like you, how you didn't like that I did not know the staggering levels of boys and some men that get until jumping way far ahead, but uh the kind of Me Too onslaught, something that was super wild to me was that about I was getting it was a global, like thousands and thousands of messages a day for or on all DMs on all platforms for probably 3 or 4 years straight, and I would say about 85% were from men and straight and gay. The youngest I remember was 14 that reached out to me. The oldest was 85, and I it like kind of like my babysitter, that my aunt, this nanny, the male swim instructor, this and that. And I have a theory And then almost without fail, every single I would just kind of scroll. I couldn't like it was just like I was like it was breaking my brain. It was so intense. I was like I became like this kind of receptacle for people's pain, but very specifically men and boys. And what was very wild was I did not know the scale of this. I still think I'm just touching the scale of that. But then I think they get told, and I'm I suspect I could be wrong, that I think boys and men might perceive that women or girls like talk about their deepest pain or shame together, or that they have some outlet for something bad that's happened to them.
Right.
I can't say this is not so. Nobody wants to deal with this, like nobody. Which fair, me neither. Um, uh, and if you do, it's in a moment of like maybe you're drunk, or maybe it's a sad moment. And you let off steam or something pops out, but then you gloss it over and pretend like change the subject and go on.
Right.
I perceive things, and tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, not that you're the authority of all society, but I think boys and men might have this fake information given to them that we have an outlet for pain as women, and just kind of talk about stuff and work through it. And that there might be some jealousy on that side from
It's interesting.
that perspective. But I can unequivocally say on our side, we do not.
So I will say, not speaking on behalf of all men,
And I can't speak
but
on behalf of all women because I'm a weirdo even there.
but say I'm a weirdo on my side too.
Fair.
We're two weirdos having a conversation. Uh, but I will say that I think the overwhelming perception is among the men I do know is that yes, women speak to a deeper degree and have more of an outlet around pain, traumatic experience, perilous situations versus us. I think society continues to create this message, this narrative
Mhm.
that women talk and men don't. And I think that men and women talk. Perhaps we talk about different things.
Mhm.
But the idea, to your point, I think the idea is that yes, you talk more about emotional matters, which involves fear and pain, and we don't. I think that's the perception.
I think I definitely think that, yeah, I've suspected that was a perception because I see how these sides are being sided and played against each other from the higher up as someone who was used as a weapon against. And that's why I bounced. I was like, no, I'm not going to be your weapon. Goodbye. And I've had some deep friendships with women, and they might share a story, then I might share a story, maybe, and then that's like, but like oh, yeah, oh, yeah, that happened to me. But no, I think everyone, it's, it's just uncomfortable for everybody. I think this is universal. And I think the weaponization of this fake idea that we get to work through stuff would, if I was a boy who's having to mask my pain and told to just put on your suit and get on with it, I would have kind of a resentment and jealousy against that because I would think that's not fair. I need help and no one's helping me. Who do I talk to? Whereas the girl is like, where are these other girls and women that talk to each other? I would like that. I need some help. I don't know how to say it, but they're all, well, we're all getting ready to go to this party or this dance or this thing. And, well, I don't want to be a downer. Okay,
So-
let's go.
Right. So I'm not
Mind
going
if
to
I
say.
not-
I'm not going to say it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. If you've made it this far, I know you're loving the conversation. So please do me one small favor: hit that bell icon, join our community. Thank you. So meeting Marilyn Manson was
I wanted to, I wanted to feel young again. I felt very old at this point. I was like, I think many people have gone through either a death or some kind of horrific thing or assault. They just want to be who they were before that happened. It just, back. Can we just rewind time just a little bit?" I'd read somewhere, like, he had a crush on me, and he opened the door of a movie theater, and I said, "Oh, hey, I hear you have a crush on me." And
So
then
that's how you met? This is what is this, about 97, 98?
98,
98?
97, 98.
Yeah.
And I I ran away with the circus at that point. I described him in my book as one of the smartest, funniest people I'd known. Very gentle. Um, and there's so many people that I kind of recognized, like people trying to destroy someone for being a freak and weird and unique. That
Yes.
I related to that, and I put me on my like high defensive mechanism. Like I can protect him.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Gave
especially
me a job.
given how you've described your life, he seems like he's your perfect match.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except for he was from Ohio.
Okay.
From a very normal place, and he would eat like these things called hot pockets, extremely American in a way, classic, with his mom and dad named Barb and Hugh, and a solid family unit, and yeah, no, like very kind of pedestrian life in a lot of ways until he
Interesting.
went into music. Yeah, so in
Interesting.
that way, completely different, but physically on the surface, um, also being around like kind of unique artists and like kind of more extravagant, wild people. Um, Men that wore makeup. I mean, my first boyfriend wore thin, long black dresses, like, this is not
Right. So
unique to me.
it's not unique at all. At
This is
all.
just this is actually feels much more comfortable to me than, like, a guy in a baseball hat. Like, that's weird. That's just, like,
Yes.
from another planet for me, right? So,
Yes.
yeah,
But now you described him as at that point, he was one of the most famous musicians in the world.
quite.
He was at the VMAs in
Mm,
'98, but I think it was your dress
mhm.
that got more attention than
Yeah.
anyone at the VMAs.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. There's a thing, and I've seen it with hindsight of, uh of how women after they're or girls after they're assaulted, maybe boys too, but I don't know how that manifests, that they then go on a kind of, like they dress differently, like they dress provocatively or they do, they're like, "Is this what you want?" And I'd actually just found out that I was always like, "Why do the photographers yell over the shoulder all the time? Why do they scream like that?" And I didn't understand. Then I asked someone, a photographer, and they said in the line on the press line, and they said, "Oh, they make 3 times as much money if they get your face and your backside in the same shot." And I was like, "Huh,
Look at that.
huh, you don't say." Then I also thought, "Well, this is Marilyn Manson. What am I like, well, I gotta win."
Yes, yeah. So that dress, that was purely your idea.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you get a dress like that?
That's the other well, it was actually someone that was sent close to him,
Okay.
and, like, I saw, like, their lookbook, and I said, "Oh, that would be funny as hell," because I just found out that information about the money, and but I didn't have the comprehension or scope. 1, internet, no, didn't exist. 2, um, I think I really just thought of it in this bubble. I didn't think of how the outside how the blowback, the slut shaming for years. But it was also that thing of like, later seeing the movie Gladiator when he comes out at the end, he's like, "Are you not entertained?"
Yes.
It was
That
very
was
much that because a lot of people have copied that dress. A lot of amazing women have copied it, but here's what they all fuck up. And it always disappoints me. They always do it to be sexy. And if you see those photos, there's not one where I'm like, later I would do that pose in like evening gowns. But for that, it was like, and it was like, kind of like, is this what you want?
yeah,
Take it. You've taken everything. Take it. Are you not entertained?
that's a whole nother perspective,
Yeah,
and that's actually what was happening.
that's what was happening.
Yes.
Then I changed into a different outfit for the sitting down portion of the evening because, you can't sit in that dress really. It was made of beading and you don't want the marks. But yeah, every girl and they've worn beautiful copies of it or versions of it, but it's always kind of like that. And mine was very like direct, which I've really found and later plays into things too of how much it destabilizes people when someone does something with power and will not bend. And when somebody is willing to be disliked,
I would imagine
it makes people upset.
yeah, I would imagine in particular because you said that you were not aware of what the outer kinda sphere
I was also not aware.
respond?
Yeah, sorry for just stepping on your lines. I was also not aware that for years that immediately that was like him, like, like could buy off the press of like, oh my God, the chaos it caused worldwide. I can't describe. So it'd be like, imagine like a very viral moment, but like almost analog, like TV, every show, every people commenting, like, you're a whore worldwide now. And I was also like, but I was also, my favorite thing was that it was punk as fuck. And that was also who I was. And I hated that kind of Hollywood thing. But I think, then this thing called Columbine, the first kind of big mass school shooting happened, and he was getting death threats.
That's right. Marilyn Manson was.
Right.
Yes, yes.
We were getting bomb threats. And I went to higher protective mode.
And I'm sorry, just to set the context, so everyone, because I do recall that. Was it because there were some lyrics that
No.
people misattributed, or no? No, what happened?
No, I think it was because those boys that were the shooters were wearing all black, and it was on live television, and it went on all day or however long they were held hostage there. Those poor kids, and the news media just saw they were all black. He wears all black. He's on the cover of Rolling Stone. He's the most famous person in the world right now, most controversial. They're wearing all black. They must love, ergo, they must love him. In fact, in their diaries, they would hated his music and liked a band called KMFDM. So
Interesting.
it was just because like they needed something that to fill the space in the airtime.
Yes. So he was getting death threats, but you, in part, you're with him. You're getting death threats.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be like actually like hiding out, funnily enough, at the Trump Towers,
That's where you hid out. Look at that.
hide in plain sight.
Oh my gosh. In New York, so hiding out there. But then also you've got the blowback from the dress. So this is 98. This is still, what,
And that
10
went
years
around.
before Weinstein's convicted of anything, right?
No,
So he's
about like 15 years.
15
16,
years
17
before.
years. I had to eat a lot of crow for a lot of years. People would come up to me on the street, power agents, like from this agency, that agency, this agency. They would see me on the street and be like, getting any good Weinstein scripts lately? Like people, like I would go to an event, it would be like, there'd be famous actresses, and they'd be sat next to me, and they would scoot away, like they didn't want to catch what I had. But to the outside world, you're so lucky, you're so lucky, you're so
Yes.
lucky.
Yes. And I tell you
Kinda
what,
what you said.
I was part of the outside world. I was part of the outside world saying, at home watching the VMAs, like, wow, look at that. She's winning in life. She can wear nothing out here. Like she's winning. She's at the VMAs. Like I had no idea any of this was happening.
It's a lot.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah. And then basically all movies were like, I was 1000% shut out of that world, but then also worldwide famous at that point. Then I'm really in a pickle. At this point, there were really not actors from movies on TV. It was just kind of starting, but it wasn't really a thing. And there was a show called Charmed that I had never heard of. Um, and at that point, if you were doing very well in the movies, which to the outside world perspective, I'm on the ups,
Yes.
right? And then I get a call from this super producer that I had heard about even growing up, like doing like famous shows like Dynasty and like Love, all these like big hits, right? Kind of corny, but like amazing, glamorous, this and that. And he's calling you with a job offer. Actually, someone told me last year, they said, oh, Aaron Spelling, he knew exactly what he was doing and he hated those guys in Hollywood.
Spelling, yes. Yes. Tori Spelling's father.
Exactly.
Yes.
But power, billionaire, like before there were a lot of billionaires. Super producer, but he hated the Hollywood film crowd, and he specifically hated Weinstein. I didn't know this, actually.
Look at
I
that.
didn't know this, and I think this was like a chess move against them. And so he offered me a job to replace, to come into a show that they'd fired the lead actress.
Yes.
And so that was a whole like hullabaloo that I didn't know anything about because I never watched the show. I'd never heard of it. Again, I'd been just in this other kind of wild world. And
But I feel like the press, I remember at that time, they were still trying to pit you two against each other.
they did that for years. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the year before she died, we kind of went out on this kind of tour together, and she was rad.
Yes. Yes.
And she was and she got to tell her truth. She did a podcast called Let Me Be Clear. and she told her story, and it was, not, and the person that got her fired, the other co-star, that orchestrated the whole thing, really, you understand that in Hollywood, if you are a woman and you get fired from a job, and especially twice, then you're donezo. But here's what people don't get. The way I was treated by the media, and I used to, like, literally cry. I would get so upset. I didn't understand, like, what did I ever do to these journalists? I didn't understand, like, why. I wouldn't read a ton of it, but you still, even if you don't really actively look, it still comes in or someone randomly tells you, and I'd be like, "What the fuck?" Like, I just used to think, seriously, I must have killed a journalist in my past life. What did I do to be portrayed this way? And it was so opposite of me, who was staying at home watching Shirley Temple films and collecting 1930s Shirley Temple dolls. But they would say, and I didn't know that yet, that I was on top of a bar having a strip off with Christina Aguilera. I was like, what? I'm in Hollywood working 17 hours a day on this show that I didn't understand the dynamics of. And and a lot of people were like, why is she on television? But I couldn't say.
And
Now there's certainly no shame in it, but there
exactly.
was at that point, and there was shame for that. But I think, it was, I also knew I was dead in movies. I was already very famous. What job?
What do you do? But even I didn't even in doing the research, I didn't even piece that together. The fact that you're right. I remember that time. Film movies you were a Hollywood movie star. You're right. You don't TV. Quite honestly, was probably beneath the
It
Hollywood.
was.
Yeah, it was. So just to make that jump,
It was extremely confusing to the public, who was like, "What?" Because nobody did that really,
right?
and I couldn't explain why.
Yeah.
But it was so I understood also psychologically the way I'd been being portrayed in the press, and also after my, contribution to it with the dress, um, that I gained weight, I got my face round, and I played very soft, and I changed my voice to make it kind of higher pitched and very sweet, and I knew instinctively I had to make America love me
Oh, really?
to keep on that job, because they said no show, and it's quite true, has ever survived a major cast change. So then I wound up making the ratings double, and then it went on, and it became at one point the longest running female-led TV show in history.
Look at that. Look at that. I mean, it's clearly not only did it resonate at that time, but still,
It's
I mean,
wild.
it's yeah to this point. And my take from it is that it was the celebration of our uniqueness,
Yes.
and that everyone wants their uniqueness to be celebrated.
Yeah. That was the hardest job in show business at that point, hour-long shows, because you were filming. A movie could take 2 months on average to shoot for a short movie. We were doing a half of a movie in 8 days, so that a full page of a screenplay on a movie, they would give, like, a high five, "We made it through a full page today on a movie." This, we were shooting 10 pages a day, and it was just, like, exhausting, but it was also, like, it was hard for me because I'd never done anything that was really super corporate. The producers once, they came up to me and they said, "We had to fire your friend Jake because there was one cool guy in the art department the first season I was on there, and he was cool, and he had, like, wild dreads, and but we found him on the back of, this school bus on this set, and he was smoking a joint, so we had to fire him." It was these 5 white dodos in their suits, right? And I just look at him, and I just said, and I was like, "If I smoke a joint, will you fire me? Can I leave?" And they were like, "If you go work at a pharmacy, we'll sue you. No matter what job you get, we'll take your wages for the rest of your life. And then we'll go after your family." I was like, cheers. They would, like, circle around me to check my weight when I came back, like, from season to season. It was just, I think it was just really inspecting their product.
Yes, but that was I say that was a different time, but was it really? Y-
I
y-
think they was just like, it was like basically, there was um, there's no chill with it. It was completely fine to be that way.
yes,
Like, now they have to kind of pay lip service to being different, but I think it is different. I don't know. People are like, "Do you think Hollywood's changed?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know." But I mean, they definitely, in a lot of ways, in the sense that it's not really a major player on the world stage anymore.
true, true. Was there welfare on that show? Like a lot of these shows that I do, we have welfare.
No.
Was there? You're laughing. I guess there was no such thing. So there's no such thing as no.
No, there's someone that would come from the most, this union for actors. I'd just be like, "Everything all right?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay."
Okay, and that was it.
But it was all right. There was nothing to report there. I mean, there's nothing that to me other than a really kinda nasty set environment with a co-star that just, I think, kind of getting Shannon pushed out and then careful what you need to orchestrate because then you wound up with me. I think it's just but I was also just like, I don't care. I've dealt with such big problems in my life.
Right.
Like this kind of like we're constantly being watched for drama on the set. And I actually didn't understand what had happened before because nobody talked about it when I got there. Like I had no idea what I was walking into. I did not know that all this like crazy stuff had been happening there, these bad energy, these like dark at the same time creating some what is amazing and super proud of, and I can separate this,
Right.
the pride I have in my co-stars for creating and crafting a beautiful magical world for a lot of kids and a lot of adults, and then once I entered for doing the same thing, despite what was happening behind the scenes, and the
Yes.
fact that that was not transmitted to the outer public, win.
Yes.
Super proud of that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, it was chaos wherever I went anywhere at that point. TV fame was unlike anything you're in people's living rooms, and that was a different level. It's a different and people form a deep attachment, and this thing was a massive global hit, so wherever I went in the world, if I had any time off, chaos, like, chased out of the Vatican, people pulling at my hair, like, surrounding me. I would just kinda, like, freeze and just try to, like kinda like that, and sometimes I would have fun, but most of the time I was terrified. I saw someone posted a clip the other night of me being interviewed, and at this point, I also had to look so mainstream, I kind of completely forgotten that I was cool.
Interesting. Interesting. I was going here because you specifically said for Charmed, you had to soften your look
Mhm.
to
I
be accepted.
because I knew the knives would be out, that the fans would want they wanted the person, the other character that they loved. So I had to do I decided to base my character kind of on, I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball. What if she was young and in this situation, just kinda, like, lovable, like, kinda goofy and soft and pitch my voice higher and be non-threatening because I was scary to people, I was and, did scary, weird things.
Yes.
And there wasn't a lot of that then. There wasn't a lot of, like, acceptance of, you know now it's like, n
It's cool. Yeah.
now it's just like, "Oh, hi. Hi, Ted."
Yes.
Fine. But at that point, it, like, still was, like, not the done thing, and, during that period, all of a sudden, like, before, I would dress myself if I ever had to go to an event or kind of do my own makeup or, things like that, and then during that whole period that I was on that show, it all changed. All of a sudden, you had to have a stylist. You had to pay $6,000 a month to a stylist,
Okay.
and they would get clothes sent for you, and then from those clothes that weren't anything you would ever normally wear, and I would say, "Oh, I like that," and they'd be like, "Oh, that's too editorial," meaning too edgy and fashion. This is red carpet, and then they would put
Interesting.
globs of makeup and a giant helmet hair, and I would just be and after they would spend hours doing this, then the car's there, and I would look in the mirror and be like and, like, "You have to go. There's no more" I would be like and I just got wor and I started, just not even noticing what I looked like. So there's this period after I did a movie. I met this director. We fell for a year. We worked on this screen, like this role, this character, and um, we fell in love much before the movie. But all of a sudden, doing the movie, not realizing that the spin doctor who controlled the media was putting all the stuff out that we were like having sex in the trailer, and I was like,
Oh,
what? Um, and that we'd met and fallen in love on set, and I was like, "No, this is not how this whole thing went down
interesting.
at all."
Um, am I okay to name the
Yeah,
director?
to
Okay,
Robert,
so this is Robert
exactly,
Rodriguez,
exactly.
who I think is a phenomenal
Mhm.
director. Most of the stories I read is that you 2 met not met, but you 2 began your relationship on set. So that's
No, a
important.
year before that, his separated wife and I were all sitting in my living room in my house. So, no, it did not go down like that at all.
Look at that.
But I still, I I mean, the oldest line in the book that, she lives in a house over here and I live over here and she's much older and we live separate lives and we work together, but that's it. I didn't realize like the married man, every fucking fake thing in the book. But there was some truth to it, but also not. But I also had never I think sometimes people come to you when you're very lost. And at that point I'd been 4.5 years on a show I was somebody else far more time than I was myself, and obviously had a lifetime of stuff that I had no time to process or deal with, and then it was just survival, and an elegant survival, if you will,
Yes.
with some
Yes.
cool stunts, and there was fun. I definitely, like, had fun moments for sure. But then I was very proud of that role, but in the middle of filming, he sold it to the only person who distributed his films before, he sold it to loser Weinstein for distribution in the middle of filming, and I was like, and then basically what happened is I'm down now going down the red carpet with this loser's arm around me, and they use that to blast the media forever. See? Why, if she'd been assaulted so many years before, would she be okay with me going down the red carpet with her arm around me? Because
How does how does that moment happen? Because, all right, he sells the movie. That's one thing.
he spun it as like,
But
we can have our revenge on we can have our revenge on him. But he was also very, hmm, I've never, like, at one point, I actually said to him, like, when, it's like just the verbal abuse was wild. My father absolutely despised him,
okay.
but he bought my sister a car, and he bought off other, like, kinda, it's a thing they do. It's like kind of, it follows a very typical pattern with people that, like, kinda get isolated from your family and friends.
Yes.
You get isolated from, they tell you they're controlling your career now or your opportunities, and then they do something really diabolical like that and then spin it as a good thing for you, and you're like, you're just stuck, and then you're gonna get sued and never work again if you don't show up for work.
What are you
What do you
supposed to
do?
do?
I started that movie, I don't know Stones very well, but I started, like, at a healthy weight, and I got so thin on that movie just of stress and, like, it was just, like, so different than the reality of what was, like, really happening,
Yes.
and then also I had been that was the last time I felt, like, wildly out of control in love with that person, but by the time like that, I was like,
No.
and I think at that point, I was just after, we broke up, I was like, "I never wanna be out of control in love with anybody again." Like, it was too I thought I found a safe haven, and,
Wasn't safe.
yeah.
Wasn't safe. The doing the red carpet, that, I can't imagine you because that was the first time that you had then seen, Weinstein
I'd
since.
seen him again about a year after it originally happened. I was at the Independent Spirit Awards. I see his picture now, and I'm so young. So, this little round face, I had a little flower behind my ear, and I remember seeing him, and I started, like, shaking, and I threw up in a trash can outside, and, like, it was just this panic, and then I didn't, but, like, the believe me, not a day almost a day went by if I was outside, in Hollywood where people weren't saying stuff to me.
So, yeah.
Or taunting me or, making me feel it while I was extremely famous. So, yeah, that juxtaposition was very strange.
Yes.
And I always was like, I know the quality level of work I am capable of doing and should be doing. Um, and then right after the Planet Terror apt movie
Yes.
title, I did a movie called Death Proof with Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
part of this kind of double feature thing. And Quentin, I guess to his credit, is the only one who actually did say, "Yes, I knew about it. I knew that that had happened to her." Didn't it affected, the way people behind the scenes treated me, but also, and I think Shannon Doherty could speak to this or spoke to this, like, it affected how when the media runs a narrative about you, it's like how the person at the grocery store treats you, how the random man who thinks he can touch you can treat you because you're portrayed a certain way, how people are like, "Oh, she must be like this." So, like, anywhere was like it was like operating in the world with this whole fake construct of who you are, so I just stopped trying. I just was like I did feel alive. I had friends in Berlin. I had friends in other countries, and when I went there, I could feel like I was like a real person.
Yes. You know what's so incredibly sad though is that this is now this person that we're talking about here is so foreign to 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 10-year-old Rosa.
So lost.
Yes.
So lost.
Yes. what the allegations were against children of God are not bad. They're a lot of these are horrific. But the way that you're describing what's happening to you in Hollywood, you could argue it's just as horrific. You know, it's just as it's similar to a cult. You know, as we started to describe the characteristics of a cult, and especially when I was looking at it, charismatic, manipulation, coercion, etc. So I see the parallels. I see it, and you now find yourself in
And
yet again another one.
so then I'm on a Tarantino movie, and it was very much that.
Okay.
That's when it was like I was on that set, and I would just be seeing things and like, or just like, ugh, the arrogance and the. Ugh. I just was like, it was almost like this alarm was going off in my head, and it was like me trying to get back into me, and it was like, wake up. And I would be take breaks, I'd be sitting there between camera setups, and it'd be like this alarm, and I was just like kind of like so zombied at that point. It was like, wake up, you hate this, wake up, you don't like this, wake up, wake up. And I was like, and then, I went through a few years after that where I woke up. And when I woke up, I think, to years and years suppressed anger, and very much exactly as you did, put it together that this was far worse than the cult I grew up in. And the thing is, movements don't happen in a vacuum. It's like now all of a sudden you wake up one day and like, what? Like there has to be events and someone like really shaking the power structure from the ground. Um, my thing, I called it, I even trademarked it, called the cultural reset.
The cultural reset. Okay.
I just thought, nah, like, and I'd always thought my thing was I want to glitch the matrix. I want to disrupt the timeline somehow, some way. But I knew I had to bide my time. And
But gosh, talk about time. So is that 20 years?
over.
Over 20 years.
And he's,
For-
yeah.
yeah.
Over 20 years. So then I played, at that point, the stories with NBC and the New York Times. And for 1 year, I'm managing, like helping the New York Times find sources, women to talk, getting them documents, playing. And for quite a while, I knew what I know is like top male egos at the top of media empires. So I played these two guys in a war with each other. Because I knew nobody's going to be like, we need to do the right thing and help out society. No, but I can get them in a pissing contest. And then I can get them too deep into it, invested in it, that they can't back out. And the way I did it was for 2 years in advance of talking to them, I started making things go viral every 3 weeks. And how I would do it is I would write an open letter, Dear Hollywood, dear this company, dear this, dear whatever it was. And I would basically do this, and I would publish it on Twitter. And within the night, it would go viral in the US, then it would hit Europe, then it would go to Asia and circle back around. And what it really was me rattling the cage of the power structure. And they were like, what the? And it was really someone from inside the hen house.
Yes.
It was very planned. And at that point, what happened was they're really running with the Trump grab them by the pussy all over the media. And I thought, this is a good time. They've painted themselves as so like upright, and all the people in Hollywood were just up in arms about Trump and like the audio tape. And I was like, oh, you think that's bad? I didn't know like, the level of the other stuff there or wherever either. But I was like, oh, you think that's really bad? Guess what? Okay. So I was doing all these things simultaneously, setting up the strategy, setting up the structure, pretending I had a massive army. It was just me, my crazy ass smoking a joint at night, being like, like oh, and just pushing it through. Next thing I know, I'm the poster girl for a movement that I was like, well, okay. I thought it was a communication tool. I've always been language based. I was like, oh, that's cool. There's never been a good way to talk about this before. You don't have to get drunk and get sad and say something to somebody. And you could just say, did this happen to you? Me too. Okay, now I know the level of your pain and what you've been through. Now we can just move on with our life. We don't have to go deep into it. I thought as a communication tool, this is genius. there's a company called E, and they produced the Kardashians show at that time. That was on them. And I thought, oh, counter programming. I'll get the Kardashian producers to produce a documentary on me. And the way I sold it was I went there and I was like, in 3 weeks, I have a book, an album called Planet Nine. This is coming out. I'm giving a major speech here and this and that. I didn't tell them what it was. They never would have agreed. And they were like, oh my God, amazing. And the next thing they know, they're basically in real time shooting this documentary we titled Citizen Rose. It's on Amazon. And in real time, this whole situation unfolding.
Okay.
And I just kind of knew I needed someone as well as possible to document it because there was no way that I could, it was just,
Yeah, it was
insane.
That's the best word to describe.
Insane.
It's insane.
It was insane. Cut to months later, they have me replace Senator Bernie Sanders as the keynote speech. People are like, why is he opening the women's March convention in Detroit? So they got me. I had to give this giant speech that's televised globally. They've scrubbed a lot of it from the internet.
Okay.
As they do. So as I step on stage, I'm like, what are you going to do? I went and I just like this portal lifted off my head and I gave a speech that was so intense, so off the cuff. I had these 20 or 30,000 women standing on their feet with their entire fists raised in the air. And then by the time I was in the car, breaking news, Rose McGowan going to be arrested on drug charges. She had cocaine in her wallet. I was like, I smoked a lot of weed. And I've certainly done that, but not on that plane, not to there, not that day. Why would I? Anyway, beyond that, I was like, the fuck? And so it was kind of like this, lift it up and cut it down. I saw the kind of whole orchestration. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So he was on trial at the same time I was on trial. And so it turned out and what was weird was that I'd already done a movie set like in a courthouse. I'd already been in that seat. I'd already said these lines. But now it's for real. The lawyer that I paid all this money to disappeared the day before I had to appear because he was, all of it. So I hired this small town attorney from across the street. It just felt like this entire, again, like that, a farce. Like everybody there, every single person in there at the highest level, 99.9% paid off to be there and do this. So we're all acting. They're all acting.
What were you facing? What was the criminal?
10 years.
10 years.
So I'm in this courthouse and I'm just like, and I actually at that point, I had wanted to look like, I just left my body. It was, and it was this small voice inside of me that just said, can someone call cut? Can someone just say cut? Because I was like, this is all theater. Can someone just please say cut?
Yeah. And this is so profound because this is happening simultaneous to
someone who is, as I can 1,000 people like, did somebody verify it? I'm like, my body verified it. I was there.
Yeah.
They were there.
Right.
And nobody would endure it. Like, and so many of that narrative. She's doing it to get famous. I'm like, bitch, I was famous. What the hell are you talking about?
In the case, in your court case, what then happens?
I wear this really sick jacket.
Okay.
Archival Mugler from the 80s. These kind of power shoulders, this like kind of fuchsia pink, and it has these like slashes in it, like a panther cut it. And the buttons are like kind of like a panther's claws.
Yes.
And I was like, let's go, bitches. And they let this bitch go. I don't know what it was. It basically, I had to sign something that said, yes, I'm guilty, but I'm not guilty. I don't know what but the small town lawyer did better for me than the guy that ran off with $200K.
Look at that. Look.
And so a lot of times I get judged by like, she said something like this during this period, or she said something like that. I'm like, I was obviously imperfect. I don't know who could have navigated all that with no real help. Everybody that I was working with that was taking money from me or making money from anything I was doing was like verified later as being like double agents with him. and his group, that it was not just him, it was like all the people at the highest levels. The woman that was one of the biggest women's rights lawyers in California, a very famous one, her daughter, whom I've never met, who represented all these women going after CEOs for this or that, these poor women that get ensnared by them. And then she was secretly working with him to destroy me in the media, like the document that she sent him to audition for the job, if you will.
Look at this.
I know the Rose McGowans of this world, something like "I'll be only so happy to destroy her" type, paraphrasing. Wild.
You know what's poetic about this, though, is that in one part of the world, here you are getting off with the small town attorney,
Right?
right? On the other side, he doesn't get off with the big time attorneys. Was there a moment where you saw the tide begin to shift, the public opinion tide begin to shift? Or not was there a moment where you saw it, because clearly you saw it, but how did you feel when public opinion began to shift on Harvey Weinstein?
I don't know. See, that was also, again, for me, like on the ground, on the streets. I went to India during that time. I was here. So I would walk down the street. I remember being by the Barbican and this homeless guy like giving me a salute. And like, keep going, all over the world. Keep going, keep going, keep going. But from the fancy people at the highest levels, or the famous people or culture people, like, no, that was crickets or character assassination of me.
Was it?
But the people on the street worldwide, yes, they saw. They understood.
But even
But
to this
if you,
day,
I don't know. I opted out. I stopped. I was just like, peace. And then I just started seeing how many were profiting from kind of, I consider it my pro bono, my free work on behalf of kind of society in a way.
all right, and profiting how so?
Like I did a favor and was a guest on a podcast when the verdict came out that loser Weinstein was guilty. I didn't know there were cameras in there, and that show had already been sold to HBO as a series.
Oh my
That
goodness.
person profited. My brother-in-law and my sister were at my house in Los Angeles. He came out of the bathroom at my house at 3 a.m, naked, and he's like, "There's a woman standing there in all black, and she's holding computer drives in her hand." There was 125 pages of my book stolen before it was published. And again, the book didn't really have anything to do with him. He was one of the stories, but to illustrate a different point.
Right.
And she said, "Oh, I'm her assistant. She needed some drives." And there was like a black car outside, the lights off, an SUV that all blacked out. And she was wearing like some movie, like a full-on cat suit kind of thing. While I was writing my book, towards the end of it, and while I was working so hard playing like this media empire to get the story done, I was also in fake negotiations to buy my silence, to not put out my book.
Okay.
But I was like, my book doesn't really have that much to do with you, and I'm not even naming you in it because your ugly name.
And this was negotiations with him. So he was offering you?
Through his lawyer, but my lawyer, who I had to pay, I believe it was $985 an hour to, was also secretly working with him. So it was all.
I see. And he thought there was a lot of your book that was about him. So the idea was...
I mean, they got the drives, so they got that one part, and I guess that freaked him out enough, but I don't know why that was any worse than, like, really the articles or the other women, the other brave women that came forward with, I didn't want... In fact, the HarperCollins had moved my time of the release up. I was supposed to be later, and I was like, no, I wanted breathing room from the trial, but they mashed it together.
Right, for the publicity.
I guess.
Yeah. I have to state this, that Harvey Weinstein is currently serving 16 years in prison for 3 counts of rape in California, and he's currently 73. Do you believe justice was served?
I would love to see a picture of him in prison. I suspect he's been in a mansion in Connecticut. That's my theory. I don't know if he's ever spent a day in prison.
Oh, wow.
Hollywood, baby. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, you blew my mind on that because, yeah, I haven't seen one. Yeah, not that I can recall. I haven't seen one.
I really would have loved. I would love to still have some kind of career to be able to do and do something in the arts and something creative again. I've never, for now, the majority of more of my life than not, have had this warthog from hell on my back and buying off public's perception of me. Maybe not everybody would like me if they met me. That's fine. But I think you might.
Yes.
I think you might.
Yes. What do you think the public's perception is of you?
I mean, I would be confused. There are, people that are kind of like deep special interests that really get kind of, they've been with me all along and connected. And there's some really beautiful and amazing humans out there. I think, and this is also totally fine too, the crowd that just loves some of the movies and things that I've done and been in, which like once they lay them out, I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty impressive. They just want to love those characters in that fictional world. I love that too. That's great. Keep that safe space. I think, when I walk in somewhere, people are like, oh, that's the Me Too woman. I'm like, yo, I thought it was a language tool, not like this. Once I really realized that I was being used to um, kind of cause chaos between men and women, like on a media level, like use me as the thing, like the focal point of people's dislike for societal change. That wasn't my thing, and I
Mm.
always said that from the beginning. That was something that by definition had happened to me. So what I did was bounce.
You said, I'm gone.
I was like,
And not just gone from Hollywood, I'm gone from the United States.
I just thought, my father lived for many, many years, over 30 years, on the west coast of Mexico. And so I'd been going there since, I was like 17. I went to the jungle. I went to the jungle ocean, and I kind of thought, and then COVID hit.
Okay.
And I thought, I was just in a completely, at that point, I wanted a different reality. I didn't want anything to do with Rose McGowan. For 1 year, 2020 was actually, I know it was really hard and horrible for a lot of people. That was actually the best year of my life.
Was it?
Because, as an adult, because I had love, I had friends there, I had my little dog, I was on a beach, and nobody could travel there for quite a while. I was actually safe.
Yeah. So then by the end of 2021,
I got wildly sick, but I didn't know in what way. And I didn't know what was happening to me. My mind was compromised. I was glitching. I was like losing the ability to speak. The beauty that I'd kind of always had was gone. And I was like, I was any sound, the sound of my dog's tag could make me fall to the ground and scream and rock. Everything hurt, like my skin, everything. And I looked kind of like, honestly, end-stage AIDS patient. And I then got something, noticed that like all of a sudden my bank account had been wiped out. My identity from the credit system in the US is gone. Like I don't exist. Because it's very typical, boring whistleblower revenge tactics, right? It's like, that's the thing. They're so boring. Truly.
but so no bank account?
Nothing.
Or-
Why I had $60. I was like, after working for years and years and years, they wiped that. But what did really help me, my former co-star, Holly Marie Combs, she said, come and do a Comic-Con. And I looked terrible at this point. I was like gone. I was a lot better than I had been, but I was still not really, my processor was very, very slow. And I was kind of like, I just looked kind of shell-shocked, which I was. And I started doing these, even though I couldn't have I was signing autographs and meeting people. And that every 45 seconds or minute, a different person, a sweet person with just kind of a smiley face and happy that they're, in their place where they feel safe, where they get to be like kind of their special interest or dress how they want. And it's like a safe zone for them. But also they're just transmitting kind of generally love to
Yes.
me. And these people, these sweet, loving nerds, held me up. And enough money that I could get some access to some medicine that has helped me somewhat. But really the indigenous stuff helped me the most.
You could see how your early life prepared you for the next chapters, of your life, if you can be prepared
There were some surprises and curveballs.
for what happened.
And who really brought me back is this beautiful man from London, from South London.
From South London.
Kid Bookie. I'd never heard of him. I had never, I would go on Instagram and I would they locked me out of my Facebook. They locked me out of X, whatever. And I'm like, okay. But I still had Instagram. So I would kind of watch people and I'd never really done that. I would usually just post but then I kind of stopped and he messaged me. It was like over about a year ago now. And I didn't know anything about him. For something, I don't know why, I actually engaged and responded. And it just somehow landed in my broken little brain. And he said, I would like to, collaborate with you. And I was like, I knew he wasn't from any of the worlds I'd occupied spaces before. So that felt safe. And I slowly started communicating with him. And then he sent me the track, but it wasn't until so it was this summer, I was like, okay, I had not done anything. I hadn't written anything. I hadn't even been able to barely kind of write posts. My brain stopped
So
functioning how it
nothing
used to
creatively.
at all. I said, okay, I come hell or high water, I'll get there. And I did. And by August, I got to that South London studio. And I got to the studio. And I realized I'd been listening to his half of the track that he'd already recorded his part of, and I had no words that came to me, and I was so scared. I was so scared. And I said, give me 10 minutes. And I went and I go, I need a piece of paper. And I found an old manual for engineering, and I ripped out a page of it. And I just went like, please, God of creativity, open the portal, whatever. I was like, help me. And all of a sudden, it just what I want to say. And what I wanted to say was how really it's my feelings for the world and people out there. Because I used to wonder for so long when I was on TV, or in the movies, I was like, who's on the other side of the screen? I really would like to meet them. We're just talked about them as fans or blocks or audience members or this box office or that. But these are who's there? Because I'm trapped behind here with this, but I'd always was so curious about all these other lives.
Yes.
And I finally, in these past few years, being able physically strong enough bit by bit to do these Comic-Cons and to connect with people, I've gotten to meet a great bunch of these people. And it's been honestly, how you're kind of intertwined with their lives and their families and what they've gone through, or just that they like you and they think that's cool. All of it's fantastic. I am so proud of this track.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I got to the city that day I actually said, oh, by the way, what is this track called? Because I was like, wait, it just said track. And I said, oh, it's called Rose McGowan. And since you agreed, it's Rose McGowan featuring Rose McGowan. I was like,
Which I have to say, I have heard.
I am so grateful that you heard it.
It is truly. We were just talking to Kid Bookie
Yeah.
a second ago off camera. I think it's exceptional. And all of my crew, we thought it was.
I mean, that's high bar.
We thought it was. It is right. And you know what what I love so much about it is that it is unexpected. To me, it's unexpected. And that's the most pleasant. Those are some of the most pleasant things in life, I think, when it's unexpected and you get that nice treat. That's exactly what it is.
There's no machine behind it. There's no setting anything up. It was just through space and time and technology and thought, we connected on some frequency.
Yes.
And I heard his call and I answered.
And you delivered. But it sounds like he did more for you than put you on a track.
Oh,
He's opened up. Would you say that he's opened up your creativity again?
Gave me the space for and safety and love for it to even come out.
What would you tell? Because we talked about 12-year-old, so I can't get that image out now. 12-year-old, all in black.
I think she was seeing her future.
What would you? She was sitting on a beach in that photo that you showed me. So 12-year-old Rose. What would you, if we can go back, you could sit next to her on that beach. What would you tell her?
That not just remember who you are. Bookie said this to me. Now it's time to embody who you are. And that Rosa, being soft, has value. And to find people that you can be around, that you don't have to wear the hard shell for, that if your body starts not liking a situation, listen to it. Don't force it to be in situations. Or that, you might get diagnosed with with autism, but you're going to hang up on the guy before he gives you the final diagnosis because you don't like labels. And it explains a lot about how you were and why you didn't understand how regular society operated and why your value system was different. And you really actually might be 73,312. And that's cool too.
Yes.
Good on you. Keep singing. It's been a real honor, Paul C. Brunson.
I tell you what, it has been, this has been a blessing. We are not over yet. We're just about over. But we are not over yet. I think your the fullness of the story to me is so, it's like what you've done is you've taken all these different pieces of this puzzle and you've put it all together for me now. And I finally get it. And I'll say, I think I was like millions of us who were fans who watched from the outside and had no idea what you were going through. And oh God, I wish we did. You know, I will say that what you have shown through your story is not just resilience, not just courage, but pure strength. And I even think back to, I keep going back to 12-year-old you. I don't know why I keep gravitating to 12-year-old you, and I keep wanting to call you Rosa at 12.
I would love to be able to go by my real name, and I don't know how to make that shift. I said that to someone, and they're like, it's too late for you now. You can't do that. And I thought, but that's my name.
What is it? I would imagine in Mexico, what do they call
Oh,
it?
everyone calls me Rosa.
They call you Rosa.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. You are Rosa.
Mi nombre es Rosa Ariana.
Th-
Verdad.
That is it. That is you. I might just have to call you Rosa.
I would really greatly appreciate it. The more people call me Rosa, the happier I could be.
Look at that.
Because then I can figure out how to actually connect, like you said, all the puzzle pieces together. And I'm proud of Rose McGowan, but that's a shell that I can like put up and be like, job well done.
Yes.
You did good, kid. But we can be us now, and maybe we can fuse. That'll happen on the stage play.
All right. I love it. So, final question.
Thank you.
Everyone gets it. That is, you've had incredible conversations throughout your life. If you could think about the one that is the most memorable, who was it with and what did you learn?
Oh. Who was it with and what did I learn? Okay, it was with a tree.
Okay. You're the first person
Probably.
to ever say, could be the last person to ever say, is with the tree, but I hear you though.
Because it was after a hurricane where I live. And there's these beautiful sacred trees to the Maya called ceibas, C-E-I-B-A. And there's a beautiful story about them like this, but I'd only seen them from the top, and they grow together, these lovers intertwined, right? Massive. And their roots were said to go down to the underworld to absorb the darkness and transmit it to light on top. And after this hurricane, giant one, like the base is like the size of the studio, is completely out of the earth. And as I'd suspected, all their roots talked to each other, and I sat there quite sad and like upset that it had been uprooted. And I know this sounds, but as we've, but it said it was always meant to be this story. And the roots down there were all holding on. And you know what? The light's on top. Except for it said it in Spanish.
Okay. But beautiful in English and very poetic as well. I've greatly appreciated this. I am truly honored that you came. And I'm very, very excited about the next chapters, plural. I think that what you have amassed in terms of lived experience is what most people will never participate in. They'll never realize. But all of that, I have to believe, is for something. And what you've done thus far, you can see the result of it. But I think what is coming, the return is going to be even greater. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait. And from this moment on, you forever will be Rosa. Rosa.
I think some of actually what you said might be some of the most important connections, dot connections that I hadn't made. So thinking about, yes, the tree, I think some of what you said put a context for certain things that I've gone through, and it was the final dot connection I needed to perceive it and understand it. So I think it might be you, Paul C. Brunson, and I thank you for that.
Well, I thank you. I thank you. You are
It is
you are beyond a superstar. Beyond a superstar.
my honor.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rose McGowan. Rosa, she always can see the beauty in the moment. I think that is such an impressive characteristic to embody, and it's something we can all learn from. And that is it's not just seeing the silver lining, but it's actually taking a moment to appreciate what it is that you do have. And I think it's beautiful. I didn't realize that she was living under life-threatening conditions. And that's my ignorance. I should have known, if you're going against the machine, that there's repercussions. Living under this threat, but still continued, still persevered. That's power. We could do a podcast series just on year 13 to 14 of her life. Yeah. And what she told us, I'm sure we didn't even have the full details on. But you think of the resilience that someone someone must possess in order to be able to live through what she's lived through, and then see the beauty, and then pull the lessons. You think about when I asked her about what she would tell the 12-year-old, in essence, she's saying, see the beauty in life. She didn't say anything about don't go to Hollywood, don't, engage with these people. It was more so just open up your eyes to the beauty of the world, especially with, I think, Gen Z, Gen Alpha that my boys are a part of. There's a real celebration against authenticity, speaking truth to power, and that is Rose McGowan.